Hello everyone, welcome to another tutorial on image processing. So in this tutorial we are going to have a look at the mouse event bindings. Now what I mean by mouse event bindings is that whenever I click my mouse, on the single click you are going to get the figures on your image. So let's see how are we going to do it. So for that, let's import our library, which is importing the CV2, which actually means your OpenCV, right? And then you need to import the numpy as well. Import the numpy, and let's keep the alias as np. And finally, now you are going to use the mouse event binding. So for that, I am going to create a function. So for that, I just use the definition keyword, right? And then I just use the draw function. The name of my function is draw, and inside this I'm going to pass the parameters as event, x, y, flags, and param. So first let's use the if condition. So if event equal to cv2 dot, so now we have to use the event, and then you can use the various sort of events here. So if you see L button double click, so it's dblclk. So basically this is the L button double click. It means that the moment I double click my left button of my mouse, it's going to create certain figures which we define, right? So for left button double click, let's create a circle. So in the last tutorial we have seen how do we create a circle. For that we require the radius as well. So let's draw a circle. So for that we have cv2 dot circle function, and inside this I'm going to pass the parameters as image, my x and y coordinates, I mean the starting coordinates, and then my radius, right? And finally I need to pass the color code as well. So this is my color code, and lastly we are going to pass the thickness of our circle. So let's keep it as 5. So once we do this, now let's again use the if condition. So if event equals to, you have to use double equals to for equal sign, right? So we have, let's say, cv2 dot event underscore. Now let's do for right button double click. It means that the moment I double click my right side of my mouse, it's going to create a certain figure which we are going to define. So for that you have the function r button. So this is our function r button double click, and then let's create a rectangle for this. So for that you have cv2 dot rectangle, and then you pass on the image, and then you pass on the starting coordinates and the ending coordinates. So let's increase the ending coordinates by 100 and the 75 respectively. And finally we are going to pass the color code. So for that you have 125, and let's keep it as 255. And lastly what you would want to do is that you would also want to define the thickness. So for that you can just use the parameter as 2. So the thickness of my rectangle is 2. So the moment I do this, now I need to use this function, which is called as what? I need to actually define the name of my name of my windows, right? So for that, let's see what we are going to do. All right, so it's showing that the name image has not been defined yet. So don't worry, we are going to define it in our next line of the code. So for now we are just going to name our window. So for that, your function named window, and then inside this we are going to keep the windows name. So let's keep the windows name as sample, or you can keep it as original as well. It's up to you. And then finally let's actually create an image. So how do we do that? So let's create an empty image. I mean the black empty image. So for that you just need to define image equal to, and then you have to use np dot zeros, and then you have to define a certain width and height for the image, for the empty image, and you have to pass the channel of that image, and then you have to pass an unsigned integer, which is np dot uint8. all right, so this code actually helps you in creating a black image, creating a black empty image. So what you do is that you just need to pass on the np dot zeros, right? And then this one is a width, this one is a height, and this one is the color channel. In my case this is 3, and then you have to pass also the unsigned integer of 8, right? So you write it as np dot uint8. So this basically creates a black empty image. Now if I want to create a white empty image, I will just go and replace here by ones. So this is going to create my white image, and if I do zeros, this is going to create my black image. So I hope you have understood this line of code. So once we do that, now what we do is that we need to use another function for calling back the mouse events, right? So for that we have cv2 dot set mouse callback, and then you need to pass on the name of the windows here, and finally the function which you have used. So in my case the function is draw, so I'm going to pass that. So set mouse callback is that now whatever you have defined here, whatever you have defined in this case, that is L button double click and right button double click. So in order to call that, simply call that, you want to use this function which is set mouse callback, and then finally you give the name of your windows which you have defined previously in this line of code. This is defining the name of the windows, and finally you pass the draw function which we have defined previously in this case. Now what we do next is that we want to actually show all these things. So for this we are going to use the while loop. So simply use while loop, and then while the condition is true, you have to show this. So for that you have imshow function, and then you can use the original and then image. Original is my Windows name, right? So I'm using that, and then you need to use cv2 dot wait key, so what is this code will do? After this I'm going to use the break statement. So priorly this function or this code, this piece of code is actually for the moment your figure appears. If I simply use the cv2.wait key 0, it's gonna, the moment you press any key in your keyboard, it's gonna destroy that windows, right? But in this case it's for escape key. Okay, if you want to use escape key for deleting your windows or destroying your windows, at that time you want to use this code. So this stands for what? Simply stands for skip button. So the moment I press escape, you just need to type this line of code, and the moment I press escape key, it's gonna destroy my all windows. We are going to use the destroy all windows function, since that is the case we are doing in every tutorials. So once I do this, finally your code is ready. Now let's go and try and run this. So if I try to run this, you will notice that alright, so there is an error actually. So you have been seeing that the module numpy has no attribute zeros. Alright, so that's it's actually my mistake. So it's actually zeros. Okay, np.zeros zeros. So you have to be concerned with spelling as well. Now let's try and run this. Alright, now this is a black window. Now this black window has a size of 512 width, 512 height, right? And it's a 3-channel image. So let's see what it do. Now the moment I press here left button double click, it's going to create a circle for me, and the moment I press the right button double click, or simply if I double click my right button of my mouse, it's going to create me a rectangle. So let's go and test this. So first let's, alright, so the moment I did my left button double click, it created me a circle. Now let's do right button, so it's creating me a rectangle. So you can follow this, right? You can see, you can test it on your own as well. So yeah, basically this is what we call as mouse event bindings. We have event, you bind something with a mouse events, and the moment you press that, it's going to directly create your figures. Now you just go and you can try it on your own. How do we also create ellipse from the mouse events, right? We can create various sort of figures, so you can also try that. So basically this is what our code looks like, and this is the output which we are getting. The moment I press here double click, right, I'm getting a rectangle. If I press the right button and if I double click my left button, I'm gonna get a circle. And when I press my skip key, it's going to destroy your windows. So I hope you have understood this tutorial. Thank you for watching.